Hello and a very warm welcome. There have been some extraordinary developments in the Middle East, particularly in the country of Saudi Arabia, and this all has been centered around the disappearance of one Saudi journalist, Jamal Khashoggi, who worked for Washington Post. Mr. Khashoggi entered the Saudi consulate of Istanbul on October 2 but never returned. His fiancée, who was reportedly waiting outside the consulate, was there because Khashoggi had entered the building to get some legal documents so that he could remarry. But he never returned. After weeks of denial, the Saudi Foreign Ministry on Friday finally accepted that Mr. Khashoggi was killed inside the building. Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman has spoken only yesterday in the 3-day Future Investment Conference, in which he has said that the murderers of Mr. Khashoggi will not be spared and they will be brought to justice. But this very peculiar incident has provided us with a very unique opportunity to understand the nature of relations that exist between West and Saudi Arabia, particularly the country of United States. Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman is the de facto leader of Saudi Arabia. Prince Salman still rules in Saudi Arabia, but Mohammed bin Salman, MBS, is to succeed him. Now, MBS is widely projected as a reformer in the Western circles and in Western media. This is because he has good relations with United States, and most of the trade United States does is with the Saudi Arabia in Middle East. Hence, it was but natural that after the disappearance of the Saudi journalist, Mr. Trump, he was very reluctant that he would take some very severe steps, in order to impose some sanctions on Saudi Arabia. He said that the United States has a profit of some $450 billion with Saudi Arabia and $110 billion for arms deals alone. And he said that thousands of jobs would be affected. This narrative, however, has been changing in the past days. And we are seeing defining and redefining of relations between the West and Saudi Arabia. UK has also followed suit. The United States has only yesterday revoked the visas of 21 Saudi nationals who the United States believe were involved in the killing of the Saudi journalist. The United Kingdom has said that it too will follow suit and revoke, the passports. Also, it is quite important to talk about the Future Investment Conference, which is being held in Saudi Arabia. It's a 3-day conference, and today is supposedly the last day of this conference. There was huge amount of pressure on the Saudi government to make some statement on the disappearance of the journalist, and only yesterday Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman has spoken on the issue and said that those responsible for the murder will be brought to justice. Now, there has been backing out of some investors, particularly from the West, who had to take part in this major conference, which is a brainchild of Crown Prince MBS. Now, here we also need to understand the nature of relations that exist between Turkey and US and Turkey and Saudi Arabia. Why I'm saying so is because Turkey has been using this entire incident as a leverage to improve its relations, which had been on a very bad note since August with the United States. This bad relations existed because of the detaining of an American pastor, Andrew Brunson, in United States. Now, Turkey has been saying since day one that it has some audio and video proof of the killing of Jamal Khashoggi inside their consulate of Istanbul, because this entire incident has happened in the Saudi consulate of Istanbul in Turkey. So Turkey has been saying from day one that it has some video and audio proof, but it has been, today is 25th of October and the incident happened on 2nd of October. It has been some 23 days, but Turkish government has not brought out its proof to international media till today. And we can assume that Turkey has made some behind the doors deals with the United States as well as Turkey to improve its relations, or otherwise the proof would have been shown to international organizations. Here we also need to mention that Mr. Trump had imposed some severe sanctions on Turkey on the 10th of August, because of which the Turkish currency had fallen by 20% overnight. And Turkey wants to improve its relations with the United States, and it also wants to use this entire incident as a leverage, and hence it is blackmailing Saudi Arabia behind the doors that the audio and video footage, it would be revealed. And we cannot say with concrete evidence that there has been some deal, but we can assume this because there has been no emergence of proof by Turkey on any platform. Also, we need to remember, what Erdogan, the Turkish president, he said in the Turkish parliament on Tuesday. He said he didn't name Mohammed bin Salman MBS, but he did say that Turkey would try its best to bring the people behind the murder to justice, and he said that since the murder happened in Turkey, therefore the trials or the judicial proceedings should happen in Turkey, and urged Saudi Arabia to submit the or allow Turkish officials to enter into the Saudi consulate in Istanbul. And one major now we have to read between the lines of this entire incident, because in the Middle East there are two main players. One is Saudi Arabia and others Iran. Iran had been silent on this entire incident for this very long period of time, but today, only some 10 to 12 hours back, there has been a major statement by Iranian President Hassan Rouhani, who has said that this entire incident simply shows that US simply cannot have some good human rights record, and it is happening simply under the watch of United States, which is actually a good ally of Saudi Arabia, that this incident has happened. Also, we need to remember that the narrative of West has been changing. In the initial days, Trump said that he found the Saudi explanation that Mr. Khashoggi entered into a fist fight very credible. But only yesterday, Mr. Trump also has said that this cover-up is the worst cover-up in his traditional, or we can say in his typical Trump language. He has said that the Saudi cover-up is the worst in the history of cover-ups, and we will still have to see how this plays out. There are some speculations that Mohammed bin Salman will be ousted from power and will not be allowed to take over his father. There is mounting pressure on Saudi Arabia to do something significant in this entire aspect, but Saudi Arabia as of now is trying its best to back away from this entire incident, and it is trying its best to have minimum possible damage to the reputation of Saudi Crown Prince MBS, and that is how it is playing out till now. Here we also need to remember that India has had some significant dialogue with Saudi Arabia in the past week, in which Saudi delegates had come to New Delhi, and they had talked about providing alternative oil to India from Saudi Arabia, because from the first week of November, the sanctions on Iran nuclear deal, which were imposed by Trump in May of this year, they will come into play, and fuel prices may and the Iranian imports that are coming to India, they will be stopped entirely, and Saudi government or delegates have said that they will provide the exports to India. So we'll have to see that how this entire incident plays out in that aspect as well. So this was Rohit talking about the murder of Jamal Khashoggi, the Washington Post journalist, and please subscribe to my YouTube channel and share this video on whatever social media platform you use. Thank you very much for listening.